More money for you. You working, you working. No more money for you. Bye bye, bye bye, bye bye. No more money for you. Working. More money for
Mayor Brandon Johnson, who we fought on some fronts together. And all those fronts we fought on together when I was with SCIU or anything else out there in the street, Brother Brandon, you have always been on the right side of history. That's why I campaigned for you, and that's why I voted for you. That's why I encouraged others to vote for you, because I knew and I felt in my heart you would be on the right side of history. And that meant including your people, descendants of enslaved Africans. Brother,
Yep, there it is. Welcome to the Reset. I am your host, Andre Clay. And on today's show, the Chicago migrant crisis and the Office of New Americans, what you should know and why. Again, on tonight's show, the Chicago migrant crisis and the Office of New Americans, what you should know about it and why. Tonight's show will be a comment section show tonight. Comment section is open. Feel free to chime in. I want to thank you all for tuning in. And with that, let us begin. Now, the migrant crisis in our country remains one of the top issues for American voters, along with the economy and now foreign affairs. And in this 2024 election season, American citizens, especially those of us who consider ourselves American descendants of slavery, foundational Black Americans, or descendants of American freedmen, well, we got Joe Biden and possibly Trump. They don't lock his ass up. Or an independent candidate like Cornel West to consider for president of these United States. But will any of these candidates finally address the specific needs of Black voters? Or will this time be like other times and turn out to be just another exercise in benign neglect? And more importantly, will this government, federal, state, and local, continue to prioritize the needs of non-citizens above those of our people? These are the questions many of us across the nation need answers to. And to illustrate just how much effort goes into helping immigrants become U.S. citizens, we'll take a look at what is called the Office of New Americans. Now, one might ask, my fault. Just a moment. There we go. Now, one might ask, what is the Office of New Americans? Well, this bill establishes the National Office of New Americans, NONA, with the executive branch, with the executive office of the president to promote and support the integration of immigrants and refugees into the social, cultural, economic, and civil life of the United States. In 2021, this act was passed in the House, H.R. 572, the National Office of New Americans Act. And out of this executive order, out of this act, there formed a number of agencies who together created a council, if you will. This particular council, together with the World Education Services, call themselves the Office of New America State Network. Now, this council supports and co-convenes an emerging nationwide Office of New Americans State Network. Through this network, the council and WES provide a forum of state policy leaders to drive positive change that supports migrant and refugee integration into the workforce and economy. The ONA State Network brings together a wide-ranging group of state officials to share best practices in immigrant and refugee integration and act as a critical anchor to help those populations fully integrate into their communities. In addition to supporting the work of existing state offices and immigration policy staff, the ONA State Network extends the following support to officials from other states exploring the possibilities of establishing a state-level Office of New Americans, a task force, or a dedicated staff position on immigrant and refugee integration issues. What this offers to an immigrant will be peer-to-peer mentoring on state-level New American integration and economic development strategies. They will provide coaching and technical assistance from the council, WES, and leaders in the fields of workforce and New American integration. Policy analysis of federal immigration legislation, directives, and programs and their projected impact on states. And tailored economic research, highlighting the demographic profile and contributions of new Americans to the state. Now, they broke them down into members, and then they have participating states. Some of the current members include California, Colorado, Illinois, where I live, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Nevada, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Oregon, Virginia, and Washington. Participating states include Minnesota, Utah, Wisconsin, and North Carolina. But that's as of right now, because I'll get to that a little bit later in the program. But here in Illinois, where we have so much coverage on the migrant crisis that's happening, and Mayor Brandon Johnson, well, decided to go onto his website and see for myself whether or not there was an Office of New Americans here in Chicago. And sure enough, there was. And we see here on the mayor's page, the Office of Immigrant, Migrant, and Refugee Rights. Services that they offer are citizenship, the DACA program, legal protection fund, undocumented students they help, language access, ICE raid response, and new arrivals mission. Along with the business affairs and consumer protection part of the city, they have immigration services that where you have the legal right to be provided the following: a full explanation of the services to be performed that includes an identification of all cost, a statement assuring that all your documents will be returned to you upon completion, a statement that you rescind the contract within 72 hours, a state declaring that the notario is not an attorney and is not able to perform legal services or provide legal advice. You have the right to request these documents in a language other than English, a formal contract that includes all services to be performed and all cost. Services immigration assistant providers may offer, provide appropriate government forms as long as legal advice is not given, transcribe responses to a government agency, translate instruction, questions, and answers on forms, assist in obtaining documents such as birth and marriage certificates, translate documents from another language into English. If licensed as a notary public, notarize signatures on government forms, refer clients without fee to attorneys, arrange for medical testing and the collection of results, conduct English language and civics courses, prepare or arrange for the preparation of photographs and fingerprints. Immigration service tips before working with a licensed immigration service provider: ask to see their city license. Notarios are not allowed to provide legal services nor provide legal advice. And please note that Chicago law sets the maximum fees for services, and the notario should not charge prices above those maximum fees set. For example, the maximum fee for the completion of one document is set at $75. you should not be charged more than $75 for the service of having one form filled out. And to further plead the case for allowing more immigrants into the city and for even being a sanctuary city and this being a sanctuary state, the New Americans in Chicago offers a snapshot of the demographic and economic contributions of immigrants in the city. Here we look at spending power and tax contributions. And again, this is from 2016, so I do want everyone to be made aware of that. Given their income, immigrants contributed significantly to state and local taxes, including property sales and excise taxes levied by state or municipal governments. Amount earned by immigrant households in 2016 was about $16.9 billion. Of that, $4.4 billion went to federal taxes and $1.6 billion went to state and local taxes, leaving them with $10.9 billion in spending power. This means that foreign-born households held 22.4% of all spending power in Chicago, more than their 20.7% share of the city's population. Immigrants in Chicago also support federal social programs. In 2016, they contributed $1.6 billion to Social Security and $427.7 million to Medicare. 28.7% of immigrants in the city received Medicare or Medicaid, compared with 40.1% of U.S.-born residents in 2016. About 52.8% of immigrants had private health coverage, while 28.8% had public health care coverage. When it comes to their population growth, 20.7% immigrant share of the population, which means between 2011 and 2016, the population in the city slightly decreased by 2%. The immigrant population shrank by 2.8%. Number of immigrants living in Chicago at 2016 is 557,904. The top 5 countries of origin for the immigrants living in the city: for Mexico, 44.5%, China, 6.4%, Poland, 5.8%, Philippines, 3.6%, India, 3.5%. And with this being 2024, we all know that those numbers are greater than what they are in this 2016 report. But let's continue. The labor force growth. Immigrants play a critical role in several key industries in the city. This includes them making 51.1% of the share workers in the construction industry who were foreign-born in 2016, 51.1%. In manufacturing, immigrants make up 48%. General services, 35.8%. Accommodation and recreation, 34.9%. Transportation and warehouse, 29.6%. Wholesale trade, 23.4%. Professional services, 20.9%. Healthcare, 20.2%. Retail trade, 18.8%. Finance, 17.3%. Education, 16.8%. Information, 12.5%. And public administration, 8.2%. Immigrants tend to concentrate in these occupations in the city in 2016. These are the jobs that most immigrants, they say, were tending to occupy. Cooks, 4.6%. Janitors and building cleaners, 4%. Maids and housekeepers, 3.1%. Truck drivers, 2.9%. Taxi drivers and chauffeurs, 2.2%. Hand movers, 2.1%. Production workers, 2.1%. Miscellaneous managers, 2.1%. Waitresses and waiters, 2.2%. Registered nurses, post-secondary teachers, construction laborers, they make up 1.7%. Because of the role immigrants play in the workforce helping companies keep jobs in the U.S. soil, we estimate that by 2016, immigrants living in the city had helped create or preserve 25,664 local manufacturing jobs that would have otherwise vanished or moved elsewhere. And although the foreign-born made up 20.7% of the city's overall population then, they represented 24.3% of its working age population, 25.5% of its employed labor force, and 26.9% of its STEM workers in 2016. When it came to entrepreneurship, despite making up 20.7% of the overall population, immigrants represent 36.4% of the entrepreneurs in Chicago in 2016. In Chicago, immigrants were 67.4% more likely to be entrepreneurs than their U.S.-born counterparts. Wow. In 2012, Asian-owned businesses in the city generated $6.7 billion. Hispanic-owned businesses generated $6 billion. 39,130 immigrant entrepreneurs generated collectively $659.2 million in business income for the city. The immigrant entrepreneurs tend to be concentrated in these key industries, and I want everyone to listen up to this. In construction, 15.8. Professional services, 15.4. General services, 14.7. Healthcare, 9.5. Retail trade, 8.2. Hospitality and recreation, 6.8. Manufacturing, 3.6. And finance, 3.5. As far as education goes, the share of the Chicago population above age 25 with a bachelor's degree high or higher in 2016, 42.6% of U.S. born, while 26.5% of immigrants. The share of the population over age 25 with an advanced degree with there being 16.5% of U.S. born citizens with advanced degrees, 11.1% of immigrants have them. 17,473 students who were enrolled in colleges and universities in the city during the fall of 2015 were temporary residents, international students supported. 11,202 local jobs and spent $790 million in the 2016-2017 year. The share of Chicago public school students under the age of 18 and who were born outside of the United States, 4.6. When it comes to housing wealth in 2016, 44.9% of immigrant households in Chicago own their own homes, compared to 40% of the U.S. born. 52.7% of immigrant households are renters. The total property value of immigrant households was $31.9 billion. Their total annual rent was $1.5 billion. When it comes to the refugees, and these are the people that we mostly hear about on the news, in 2016, 25,000 immigrants, or 4.5% of the foreign-born population, were likely refugees. About 73% of these refugees were naturalized citizens. Median annual income of refugees in Chicago in 2016, the median annual income of refugees, listen to this, $59,000. About 25.4% of those refugees held a bachelor's degree or higher. 25.4% of the refugees, ladies and gentlemen, enter our country already with a higher education, while 8.8% held an advanced degree, even 8.8% and even higher degree. These are refugees. Refugees tend to concentrate in these occupations in the city. Mining and oil and gas extraction, 8.9. General services, 2.6. Transportation and warehouse, 2.1. Manufacturing, 2.1. And when it comes down to undocumented immigrants, the number of undocumented immigrants, and this is in 2016 again, 169,915, which is the share of immigrants who were undocumented, 30.5. The top countries of origin for the undocumented immigrants in the city, Mexico is at 62.1%. From China, 4.8, Poland, 3.1, India, 2.8, Guatemala, 2.4. The amount earned by undocumented immigrant households, $3.7 billion in 2016. Excuse me, 476.8 million went to federal taxes and 189.1 million went to state and local taxes. Undocumented immigrants tend to concentrate in these key industries: recreation and accommodation, 21.8, manufacturing, 18.4, professional services, 11.7, construction, 10.6, general services, 9.1, transportation and warehouse, 7.5, retail trade, 7.0, healthcare, 6.2, wholesale trade, 2.9, finance, 2.7%, educational services, 1.7. So we see through these reports, and even though, again, they're from 2016, immigration is having an impact on our city, and it's providing a lot of services for those new to this country, whether they come here as a refugee, seeking asylum, or not. There's a whole system we see set up from the federal government on down to the local level, a whole system established to help those new to this country gain citizenship. We see that they're being provided jobs. And in Chicago, we hear about how they've been provided shelter with rent paid up in advance, job training, and the like. And the question still remains, are they taking the place of many of us in America? Are they taking our place? Because we hear the argument from the right where they say, you know, let's build this wall, let's close the borders. Well, yeah, but then you have all your big companies down there that are willing to hire a lot of the undocumented immigrants who come here for less than minimum wage. But then we have those on the left, the Democrats, trying to do everything they can to provide an easier pathway to citizenship, no doubt to increase their voter base and replace them with the African Americans. But that's just my analysis of that so far. But let us continue, because we also have a state, and a friend of mine sent me this, one of the participating states with the Office of New Americans is surprisingly Texas, the very same Texas that have shipped thousands of undocumented immigrants, refugees to Chicago and New York and different cities. But Chicago gets the most headlines, ship thousands of immigrants here by bus and plane. But within the state itself, there is an Office of New Americans, and is located in El Paso County in Texas. And let's take a look at how they conduct their Office of New Americans. So far on their website, when I went to it, the Office of New Americans offer a few programs. As a division of the Community Services Department, we have I Speak 915, El Paso's language access solution. We also have Welcome to El Paso. We stand in solidarity with the Afghan community. And then lastly, the Office of New Americans, Inclusion, Integration, and Improved Quality of Life for All. Their vision and mission, which is condensed here, but it's a lot like what Chicago's is. El Paso's County's Office of New Americans, the ONA, is committed to improving the inclusion, integration, and overall quality of life for our county's immigrants and refugees through enhanced collaboration with the community, educational institutions, nonprofits, and interfaith organizations. ONA seeks a safe, engaged, and inclusive El Paso where everyone, and they capitalized everyone, can contribute and thrive through civic, economic, and cultural integration. We will work with our constituents, community-based organizations, and advocacy groups to establish a welcoming strategic plan. The welcoming strategic plan will record our overall mission, as well as our short-term and long-term goals and the action plan to reach them. It will provide transparency and direction for implementation of these future programs. El Paso County ONA is proud to collaborate with not only local partners, but also nationwide organizations like Welcoming America, National Partnership for New Americans, Cities for Action, New American Economy, Citizens for Citizenship, and Immigration Legal Resource Center. Plenty of help, plenty of resources. But what about the rest of us? Which is what we saw from the sister that addressed Mayor Brandon at that city council meeting. Those of us who are descendants of slavery, we know what our contribution is to this country. And for years, we keep witnessing election after election, whether it's on the federal, state, or local level, the continued benign neglect that we've experienced since the end of slavery. Why does this continue to happen? And more importantly, why do we allow them to continue to do this? See, it's in my opinion that we as a people, we have to become more unified. And I think we've gotten a little too comfortable with the idea of voting for a person just because they're Democrat and just because they're Black, just because they look like us. Because when it's all said and done, the policies that they tend to push, the policies that they pass, the policies that they're willing to execute don't have a benefit to our people. No specific benefit. We continue to save this party, the Democrat Party. We continue to save this nation. But when does this nation take time to think about us? Don't answer that. Truth is, we need to think about ourselves for a change. This election season, it is very important, in my opinion, that we vote policy over party, because neither one, it seems, has our interest at heart. How much longer are Black people in this country going to continue to vote for Democrat candidates who promise that we're going to do something for you guys? We're going to pass this legislation to keep the police from killing you and beating you, and these judges from over sentencing you, and these private prisons from capitalizing off of you guys being incarcerated. But they never do. They never do. The Republicans have no desire to change any laws and do anything to help us at all. But something's got to change. It is in my opinion that because we continue to be the largest voting bloc in this country, we have been for the last 60 years or so. And with the Democrat Party, quite honestly, it is impossible for them to win a major election without us. Unless American descendants of slavery are voting at a 80% or higher number, they can't win, because no other group of Americans in this country vote at that percentage point. No other group, none. Not white men as a collective, not white women as a collective, not the Hispanic population, not the Asian population. None, no one. It is in my opinion that what citizens are doing as far as addressing Mayor Johnson is exactly what needs to be done. They need to keep fire under his behind to keep him honest about what's going on, because he hasn't been. A lot of things have been done in the dark of night, according to some of the city council meeting members, some of the aldermen. And around the state of Illinois, we're all taking notes of this. Different cities and different towns across the state, they put limitations on these immigrants coming into their cities. Some have restricted them altogether. And it's simply because they can't handle the influx of those new migrants coming into their cities and being able to take care of them. American citizens, we're hurting bad enough. That's the truth in the matter. But for some reason, our governments, they always seem to be able to find more funding to help other folks out. But with American citizens, no, they ain't got any more money for us. They just tell us to just keep working harder. You can do it. But look, things have got to change. Things have got to change. But let's go on to our next slide. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties there, ladies and gentlemen. Please forgive me for tonight's show. Yeah, we're having some issues with some of our scenes here. Word of thought for everyone: just think about what's being said. There's a lot of assistance that these immigrants are being given, and it's all coming out of our tax dollars. It's all coming out of it. And what are we going to do about it? Election time, I think we need to do more than just be emotional voters when it comes to, to this election cycle. We need to think about ourselves and what's important to us and what policies we want to see passed for ourselves. Otherwise, they'll continue to take us for a ride and we not benefit from it. And that's just what it is. And with that, have a good one.